Ukraine with Sergej Sumlenny, Director of the European Resilience Initiative Center. Sergej, it's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Now, just a couple days ago, we were talking and you were in Zaporizhzhya delivering drones to the front lines. Tell me, how is morale at the moment down there in the south of the country, right there on the front lines?
Well, it was really surprising to see the strength of the morale, because when we talk to Ukrainians who live in Kiev and Lviv or here in Poland as refugees, they very often say, yeah, we're tired, we don't know what will happen next. And then you go further and further to the front, and you see that the level of morale is rising. Maybe because it was the 47th Brigade, which is famous for its high morale and high quality of fighting. Maybe because they were on the advance. They have just taken Robot in the back. And now, if we look at the maps, we see that they continue to expand this breach in the Russian defense line, this so-called Surovikin line, which many in Germany call, ironically, Biden-Scholz line, because it was created just during the months which Russians have got because of the delay with the delivery of the weapons to Ukraine. But long talk short, the soldiers of the 47th Brigade were highly motivated. They know what they're doing. And it was really amazing, sitting with them in the center of Zaporizhzhya in a cafe when they, every single person, who were 23 years old, my God, 22 years old. They only had their coffee and their cheesecake because they don't drink alcohol while on the duty, of course. Right. And they have a lot of stress, and they compensate it with a lot of sweets. And they were telling jokes. One of guys who is a fan of Star Wars, he demonstrated me photos on his mobile phone, from his costume, which he made for Mandalorian show, but could not use it because the war started. And that was really an amazing feeling, seeing these guys are protecting every one of us.
Right. Now, we also talked a couple days ago, but maybe this would be also a good opportunity about the use of drones, both by Russians and Ukrainians. Have you noticed, since you've been going to the front lines, that the Russians are using more and more drones at the moment?
Well, we know that up to a certain time, the Russians had clearly much more drones than the Ukrainians, because several months ago, the Chinese producers of drones, they have not stopped but reduced the amount of drones which they sold to Europe from where they came further to Ukraine, and increased the amount of drones which are being transported to Russia. So now it looks like there are some under-carpet tensions between Beijing and Moscow. And we know that the Chinese government has imposed not bans, but certain limitations on exports of heavy drones, with the weight over 4 kilos. That's not like Mavic DJI drones, which are smaller, but for bigger drones. And these exports to Russia, they require special authorization. It's not banned, but the Chinese, they try to find out what is best for them. Of course, they are ready to support Russia, and of course, they're ready to earn money on this war. But it is really hard to say what is the real situation on the Russian ground. Of course, they have drones. They have also their own produced drones, like Lancet or these Iranian Shahed drones. But they are not overmighty, and they lose a lot of artillery, dozens of pieces of artillery every day, which means that the Ukrainian drones are working fine.
Right, right. And despite our expectations that the Russian military stocks of artillery shells, for instance, would be dwindling, well, the Russians still continue to outshoot Ukrainians. But really, when you look at the situation right now, we know that Ukraine is going to continue this counteroffensive probably into the winter, maybe even perhaps through the winter. Are you confident that slowly but surely they're making more progress than what we're seeing here in the newsroom and reporting on in this 24-hour news cycle?
Well, of course, we all expect a huge breakthrough, like we have seen it last year with Kharkiv offensive, one day, several dozen kilometers. Of course, it's not possible anymore because of the defense lines, because of trenches, landmines. I have been shown pictures, aerial footages of Russian defensive lines. It's kilometers, miles and miles of trenches, very sophisticated, with underground tunnels, really dig in. And Ukrainians need time not only to go through, also to clean it all. But we know that they're going, we know that they They claim more and more land. And we know that winter never stopped Ukrainians last time. Kherson was liberated in the middle of November. Everyone believed in October the offensive will be stopped. No, Kherson was liberated in November, and the advances didn't stop on that. So I think we will see the step-by-step advance. The main question is, will the Ukrainians manage to make this breach wider? Because it's about broad character. Because you cannot have all of your tanks and artillery and IFVs in a very narrow passage, because then you make them to the feast of the Russian artillery. So they need first to expand this breach and then to go through. That is what they do. The problem is that the Russians put landmines in front of the Ukrainian troops faster than the Ukrainian troops regain the land. So it's about like cat and mouse play. And I hope that the Ukrainians will still overcome here, because they're highly motivated. We know that the Russians, losing their mobilized people, the average timeline of Russian mobilized soldier is, I think, like 2 up to 5 months on the front, and they're not skilled. So I hope the Ukrainians will demonstrate more success next weeks than we expect.
Right, and potential for a major breakthrough that could help those front lines, those long front lines, collapse there in Ukraine. Definitely something I think we're all hoping for. Sergej Sumlenny, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us tonight in the studio.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
And that's all the time we have on World News tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching, and stay with us for more on TVP World.